Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video games. There are bloody loads of these things. Ever since the release of the first arcade game in 1989, along with an NES game that year, we would consistently receive new entries from the series right up until today. Since the series is so sprawling, no lunatic out there has ever tried to produce historical retrospectives on all of them. That is until, of course, I came along. By this point in our quest to look at all of them, we have already covered every mainline entry from both the first and second Konami era of the franchise, and we now find ourselves deep in Ubisoft territory. From this time span, we have looked at the video games based on the 2007 CG movie, as well as the hideous polygonal remake of the legendary Turtles in Time. So considering these are out of the way, it is now time to shift our focus towards another Odd Turtles Ubisoft product. The time they would shamelessly rip off Super Smash Bros. So with all of that said, hello ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here. This is the story of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Smash Up. Yeah! But before we move forward, I would like to give a quick thank you to everyone who has subscribed to this channel. Here is a graph illustrating that hundreds of you helped the channel by subscribing just since Sunday. I know it can be annoying to hear YouTubers asking you to hit subscribe, but as you just saw, it truly makes a difference. If you don't ask, you don't get. That graph is proof of how much it has personally helped me. I cover very niche topics sometimes on here, and for every like, subscribe, comment and share, you have helped me to increase the reach of my little channel, and for that, I cannot thank you enough. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. The legendary heroes in half shells have had an admittedly mixed run of console and arcade video games by the time the 20th century ended. Powered by strong titles from Konami and largely focused around the era of the original cartoon show, most of them were iconic beat-em-ups or aggravating but solid adventure titles. I'm looking at you, Underwater Level on the NES. But by the time the franchise was cooling down in the wake of the late 90s, competition for children's attention alongside the relative failure of the third movie was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. Released on the NES, SNES and Sega Mega Drive, Genesis for you Yanks, the three titles varied widely in style, characters and gameplay. For the NES, it was a rare two-player fighter, the most important game in the world. But for 16-bit consoles, it was Tuesday.
I'm sorry.
Tournament Fighters unquestionably based itself off of the highs of Capcom and SNK's fighters that dominated arcades at the time, but were respectable for what they were, a fighter based off of a licensed cartoon or comic book property. I'm looking at you, Justice League Task Force and Double Dragon 5 The Shadow Falls, but between Tournament Fighters and the Arc System Works Sailor Moon fighting games, there would be a few that were worth looking at. Tournament Fighters has now even made its way to the Cowabunga collection, complete with online play, becoming a cult hit in the era, but back in the 90s, it was the end of an era and would be the last console title released in the 20th century. But of course, you can never keep the Turtles down in their sewer for long, and with a number of new cartoons, movies and change of ownership in the early 21st century, a fighting game starring the Turtles worked once, so why not twice? Which brings us around 2005's TMNT Mutant Melee, of course another game we have looked at in the past on here. In namesake, this one seems to have purposely used Melee in its title to associate with the success of Super Smash Bros Melee, that generation's legendary party fighter. But gameplay wise, Mutant Melee would feature the arena style of fighting, offering up a sort of Tesco value Power Stone like experience. While under Konami, the Turtles brand clearly flirted with taking influence from the success of Smash Bros on the GameCube, the next generation of gaming, on the Nintendo Wii, would see Ubisoft decide to go all in with such a concept. By 2009, the Ninja Turtles were on a bit of an upswing, as this year was the 25th anniversary of the franchise. Dating back to 1984's first issue of a comic book by Mirage Studios, Ubisoft announced Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Smash Up as a celebration of the franchise. The title would release for the Nintendo Wii and Sony PlayStation 2 on September the 22nd, 2009. and the Ubisoft game would be developed by Game Arts, a developer with a significant history of notable Japanese hits, including Alicia Dragoon, Slipheed, the Grandia series and more. These were not the only well-known titles that the development house had worked on, as Ubisoft were most interested in working with Game Arts for their experience with one game in particular. I am talking about Super Smash Bros Brawl for the Wii. If the inspiration from the title wasn't obvious enough, intentionally hiring people who worked on the Nintendo's platform battler is proof that Ubisoft had gone out of their way to create their own Smash Bros game. There are so many elements with Smash Up and Smash Bros Brawl which are the same. Much like the Smash franchise, gameplay features up to 4 characters facing off against each other on polygonal, multi-leveled arenas based on areas from the Turtles franchise. Players can win matches by knocking their opponents out of the ring, making them fall for the various traps in the level, or simply reducing their life bar. Basically, it's the good old virtual fighter mindset of giving the player multiple ways to win. The cast of the game was decided by Mirage Studio, so features a few characters that you'd obviously recognise. The 4 Turtles, Shredder, Casey Jones, April O'Neil, Splinter, and the Foot Soldiers would just have to be here. Characters like Karai, Nightwatcher and the old Trominator would be a bit more niche, but certainly very recognisable to fans of the franchise. As was the trend at the time, there is a difference between the 2 consoles lineups, as the Wii version gets 4 more characters. These include Future Toyd, a known Ninja Turtles cast member, but more surprisingly, 3 of the Rabbids from Ubisoft's Rayman spin-off Raving Rabbids. So Ubisoft even went as far as to rip off Smash Bros. Crossover element, despite the fact that the Rabbids and the Turtles fit about as well together as people who attend gaming conventions and deodorant.
I wonder if you could show me how to use the shower.
These extra roster members include the generic Raving Rabbid, a purple bandana wielding rabbit that rocks a toilet seat and dual spatulas, and the Splinter Rabbid, who is obviously based off of their rat mentor, right? Well, nope. Don't forget that Ubisoft also has a major franchise with Splinter in the name, which is of course Splinter Cell. Also spinning out from Rayman Raving Rabbids 2, this Rabbid is actually based off Sam Fisher, the Solid Snake equivalent for Ubisoft. One wonders if this has to be a subtle nod to Konami's legacy with the Turtles. If Konami produced this game, would we have had Bomberman dressed as Solid Snake and the Ninja Turtles? Was that game in the multiverse? As the game doesn't explicitly fit into any of the existing canon, the art style is close to the 2007 CG movie, but features the voices of the 2003 cartoon show. The cutscenes are done in the style of the original black and white comics, and are co-written by Peter Laird, so that era of the franchise is appropriately replicated as well. Building on this era's ambiguity further, you will notice that the game's logo looks very similar to the one the franchise had between 1987 and 1996. Really, all we need to round it out is Venus de Milo and the warriors from Tournament Fighters to have some references to most parts of the franchise, but given Laird's well-known hatred of the Saban Entertainment 5th Turtle, we know that would never happen. In fact, thanks to this disdain, we know that we will never, ever see this woman turtle be reintroduced into the canon. Oh god, no! But beyond just being a Brawl ripoff, gamers were given an additional incentive to buy this game. To round out the release of the title, both the PS2 and Wii versions would come with a 24-page comic book drawn by Jim Lawson, working as a prologue to the tournament for the characters. It's implied but not confirmed that Peter Laird wrote this, and Eric Talbot inked it, as they worked on the in-game artwork and comics. To expand the playable characters, there are alternative outfits. April can dress like the 2003 cartoon, Casey can dress like he's back to the sewers outfit, Donatello and Raphael can be based on abandoned toys, the Foot Soldier and Shredder can be cyberized, Karai can go gold, Leonardo and Splinter can wear new blue duds, and Michaelangelo can go hip hop. The characters and gameplay can all be expanded with a variety of modes, from the basic arcade and mission mode, alongside a variety of multiplayer actions. The variety of modes gives the game a bit more heft than what would have easily been a quick cash-in, but doesn't feel like it goes nearly as far as Nintendo's own offerings. The gaming media would quite expectedly not be particularly impressed with this game. IGN, for example, would say,
"There's nothing really wrong with Smash Up considering the foundation it's built upon. It's just nothing particularly original, and for the most part, everything in Smash Up is in its inspiration, and done bigger and better than this game. Smash Up's character roster is pretty paltry in comparison. It does have the key players, but there's very little variety to be found. Smash Up doesn't even really celebrate its franchise in the same way Nintendo does with Smash Bros. Smash Up isn't specifically referencing any TV show, comic, or movie, but it's clear that the character models in some of the locations, like the rooftop at night, are based on the 2007 CG movie. No references are made to any other series, so you're not going to hear the classic 80s theme song or see those character models here."
Game Informer would add,
"Unfortunately, you can only squeeze so much variety out of a 2-button control scheme, and the movements are so floaty you feel like you're controlling a bunch of Teenage Mutant feathers. Power pickups, which allow you to throw ninja stars or electrify your enemies, range from useful to unfairly useful. Surrounding yourself with a mini tornado can turn the tide fairly quickly. The roster starts out thin, but you can eventually unlock 16 playable characters, including Ubisoft's famously demented Rabbids."
As for this strange rip-off's legacy today, it is probably not surprising to you in the slightest that during the years since this one came out, Ubisoft's largely just ignored it, with them eventually losing the Turtles license altogether. As for the Turtles, they are now under the orange umbrella of Nickelodeon. They have been added to Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, another platformer battler that cribs a noun from Nintendo's Smash franchise. April, Leonardo, Michaelangelo and Shredder represent the brand in this title, one I certainly aim to cover on this channel potentially at a later date. That being said, do you feel like Smash Up is a lost title that you'd love to see reissued for next year's 35th anniversary of the franchise, or is it a shameless ripoff that deserves to be flushed down the sewers of history for good? Let me know in the comment section down below. As mentioned at the start of this video, hitting that subscribe button is of the utmost importance to this channel, so make sure you do that if you want me to cover more Turtles games no one any longer cares about. Once you've done that, why not check out my video on Ubisoft's ugly remake of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Turtles in Time. Yeah, cheerio.